defending Vietnam's sovereignty over its islands, there are areas where to gain control as we have today. Mr. Chan had to fight with all his might, even sacrificing himself to protect the entire territory. Looking at the map, Holland Reef is as small as a grain of sand in the vast sea, yet it has entered the nation's history with tragic and heroic feats. In the 1988 Sovereignty Defense Campaign of the People's Navy officers and soldiers, following the heroic tradition of previous generations, today Holland Island is gradually becoming a solid stronghold of the nation's frontline. S video, let. First is the natural conditions of this feature. Accordingly, Holland Reef is a coral formation belonging to the Sin Ton cluster in Vietnam. Currently, Vietnam controls this feature as part of Sin Ton Commune, Trong Sa Island District, Con Hoa Pro. The location of Holland Reef is about 590 kilometers southeast of Canada, about 15 kilometers southwest of Sin Ton Island, and about 13 kilometers west of Lent. Holland is considered one of the most important frontline islands because this feature is only about 3.2 kilometers northwest of Gac Ma Reef, which China, due to a very close distance, standing from Holland Island, within a short line of sight, one can clearly see the submerged. Currently, China has been and is illegally reclaiming land with the ambition of turning Gac Ma into, with large scale and many newly built structures here. In essence, Holland Reef is an oval-shaped coral formation, with a maximum length of about 2,300 meters and a maximum width of. The total area of Holland Reef is about 2.3 square kilometers, which is about 230. This reef is quite flat, and unlike large reefs or boat-shaped reefs, Holland Reef does not have a central lagoon. When the tide rises, this rocky island is completely submerged underwater, and when the tide recedes, only a few. The climatic and hydrological conditions at Holland Reef are characteristic of the Spratly. There is a cool summer, warm winter, dry season from February to May, and rainy season lasting from May to January. But in the dry season, the climate is very harsh, with hot and stuffy weather lasting from 4:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily. And due to its low latitude near the equator, the island has many sunny days, about over 300. During the rainy season, the weather is cooler but often has unexpected storms affecting activities on the island. Being a submerged island, Holland Reef has no vegetation, mainly inhabited by birds, most notably seagulls and some seasonal migratory birds. Around the island, near the edge of the coral reef, there are many high-value fish species such as pomfret, mackerel, tuna, and some highly nutritious sea cucumbers. Therefore, during calm seas, our country's fishing boats often come here to catch seafood. Being a submerged island with steep underwater rocks, accessing Holland Island is very difficult. In fact, fuel, food, and fresh water are entirely. But in recent years, officers and soldiers on Holland Island have become self-sufficient, simultaneously becoming one of the submerged islands with the largest water reserves. Additionally, due to being equipped with a storage tank system, the soldiers have proactively ensured 100. Previously, the main food that officers and soldiers here ate was canned, dried, and frozen food. But since becoming self-sufficient in water, Holland Island officers and soldiers have done well in growing various types of green vegetables and herbs, as well as raising pigs, ducks, etc., to meet living needs, improve meal quality, and gradually replace frozen and canned food in their diet. Holland, most prominent in history during the 1988 Sovereignty Campaign. Names like Gac Ma, Lan Dao, or Holland have long become immortal with heroic epics. In the 1988 Sovereignty Defense Campaign of the People's Navy officers and in the fierce battles that took place there, Holland Island truly was a miracle, a legend in the history of defending our country's island sovereignty. Looking back at history to the days of March 1988, following the directive of the Navy Command on carrying out Mission 88. At 9 a.m. on March 13, 1988, Ship HQ 604 with Captain Vu Phi Tru as commander and Ship HQ 505 with Major Vu were ordered to enter Da Long Island and proceed for Gac Ma and Holland Islands. With aggressive intentions and long-term occupation ambitions, China brazenly. By 6:30 a.m. on March 14, 1988, after Ship HQ 600, two Chinese destroyers continuously shelled Ship HQ 505, causing it to be hit in the right engine room. Due to engine failure, Ship HQ 505 drifted nearly 1 knot. All engine compartments were fiercely ablaze. Electricity was cut off, Water was flooding, oil was spilling, the ship was tilting, with a high risk of sinking in waters. At the life and death moment, nature let us test that if ship HQ 505 sank, all officers and soldiers would have to sacrifice the ship and the island, and therefore, he decided to keep the ship at all costs. Within just 3 to 4 minutes, he ordered the technical force to focus on repairing the ship. Once repaired, he ordered the ship to run both engines to steer the boat toward Colin. As they neared the island, Mr. Hall ordered the ship Hakai 505 to go full speed ahead, even though 2/3 of the ship's hull was on fire. The soldiers on board fought the fire to save the ship. After the 5 wounded soldiers on board were taken to Colin Island for emergency treatment, Captain Le and many other comrades used lifeboats to return to Gac Ma Island to rescue their company. Although blocked by Chinese forces using AK rifles to fire at the bow of the lifeboat, Captain Bu Hoyle bravely continued to rescue his. Through unheard warning, 45 wounded soldiers and personnel were rescued and taken to Sintan Island for emergency treatment. By the evening of March 14, 1988, Captain Bu Hoyle and 9 others remained to guard the ship and the island, always in a state of combat readiness. Every day, the invaders harassed, sending warships to threaten and call for surrender, but the soldiers resolutely held their ground on Colin Island. By June 1988, when the provocative actions of Chinese ships had decreased, we could rest assured that sovereignty over Colin Island had been firmly maintained. The decision to use the nearly 100-meter-long, 38-meter-wide ship as a fortress to hold Colin Island was later evaluated as a major, bold, and accurate decision by the image of the brave ship HQ 505 reached to hold the island became a living milestone, a symbol of Vietnam's sovereignty. Later, the Vietnamese people tried to bring the HQ 505 ship to Can An port for repairs, but failed. The ship sank near Colin Reef. In 1989, the crew of HQ 505 and Captain Bu Hoyle were awarded the title of Hero of the People's Armed Forces. Recently, the talented Captain Bu Hoyle passed away at his home on August 19, 2022. It can be said that in that uneven battle, the enemy had many modern weapons, equipped with powerful artillery and machine guns. With our army's transport ships and infantry weapons, the disparity in strength between the two sides in the dispute was very low. In the face of the invaders' aggression, 64 officers and soldiers of the Navy bravely sacrificed their lives. And the sea area around Colin Island and Gac Ma became a special cemetery that naval soldiers still call the Red Cemetery. However, overcoming losses with a resilient will, as long as there are people, there is the island. Sacrificing to the last drop of blood, we ultimately held Colin Island after Gac Ma Island was captured and forced the enemy to retreat. After gaining control of Colin Island, the command of the 4th Naval Region of Vietnam decided to send a force led by to command the construction of a high-stilt house on Colin Reef. On July 10, 1988, the engineering force completed the high-stilt house and handed it over to the 146th. At Colin Reef today, the People's Navy of Vietnam still maintains a military post on the northern part of this reef. After many renovations, the architectural complex at Colin Reef includes a durable house and a multi-purpose cultural house, about 65 meters apart, connected by a concrete bridge. It is known that in October 2017, with a desire to share the hardships and shortages, both material and spiritual, of the military and people on Trong Sa Island District in general and the officers and soldiers, Agribank allocated 37 billion Vietnamese dollars from the welfare fund of the entire system to sponsor the construction of a multi-purpose cultural house. In addition, since 2016, naval engineers have blasted coral reefs, clearing 2 channels on both sides so that external ships can easily access this area. In recent years, with the attention of the party, state, and compatriots nationwide, the material and spiritual lives of officers and soldiers on Colin Reef have been gradually improved. Besides the sturdy low-rise building and the 3-story multi-purpose cultural house, the island has also been equipped with wind and solar energy systems, contributing to improving the lives of officers. The island is also equipped with a TV system and a modern digital karaoke system. Additionally, the signal receiving and transmitting station of Vietnam television satellite helps officers and soldiers on the island promptly update. On the island, there is a library with nearly 1,000 book titles and over 20 types of newspapers, along with a legal bookshop. Today, due to its important location, Colin is a place where fishermen come to anchor to avoid storms, and to obtain fresh water and supplies for their sea journeys. As an outpost, Colin Island coordinates with other islands of the Trong Sa archipelago to form a continuous, solid defensive formation, serving as an outer shield to protect the islands in the eastern flank of the South Set. Recognizing that importance in recent years, officers and soldiers on duty on the island have always strictly implemented directives and orders from superiors, remained vigilant, and been ready to fight. And although China used force to illegally occupy Gac Ma Reef of our country in 1988, it did not stop there. This ambition has not been abandoned regarding Colin Island. Since it is not far from Gac Ma Reef, Chinese ships have repeatedly brazenly approached to conduct reconnaissance on our country's Colin Island. However, the officers and soldiers on the island resolutely prevented and repelled them, forcing them to return to the other side. To prevent China's continued probing to realize its ambition of monopolizing the East Sea, in recent years, the naval force has organized extensive fencing aiming to prevent enemy ships from harassing and conducting remote. Specifically, reinforced concrete piles have been driven deep into the seabed on Colin Coral Reef, with parts the rows of reinforced concrete piles, neatly aligned and protruding from the water surface on Colin Island, are precisely to deal with invaders if they intend to touch. The recreated Panjiang blockade is contributing to maintaining the sovereignty. Currently promoting the tradition of bravery, unity, overcoming difficulties, and firmly maintaining the sovereignty of generations of officers and soldiers on Colin Island have continued to write glorious pages of history, not only doing well in maintaining the sovereignty of the homeland seas and islands. Colin is also a support point for Vietnamese fishermen in the Colin Island remains steadfast against the storms, facing Gac Ma with a high spirit of vigilance, where the generation of our fathers fell in the uneven naval battle against the cunning and ambitious enemy. Here, the soldiers of Colin still guard the sea and sky day and night, determined to hold every rock, every coral reef against the greedy enemy's invasion attempts right opposite. With the vow, as long as there are people, there is the island.
So we have finished exploring Colin Rock Island. If you want to discover which island next, please leave a comment below the video. Hello and see you again in the upcoming videos.